Hey, welcome to Mondays with Michelle, the first ever podcast. I'm so excited to join you today. So, Mondays with Michelle is a sanctuary where we unite to inspire hope and peace through engaging discussions about mental health, relationships, and parenting. To share a little bit about myself, I am your guide through the sanctuary. My name's Michelle Smith. I've been a mental health therapist for over 14 years now. I am also an aspiring author navigating the book proposal process. I am a peacemaker and I'm an advocate for those without a voice. Most recently, that involved running for state legislature where I live. So I did that in last year in 2024. So thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. I'm glad to have you. Today, we're going to be talking about self care and creating intentions for self care. So to begin, we are going to run through the 7 different types of self-care. Depending on your experience and where you're from, you may hear about more than that or maybe less than that. But today we're going to be talking about 7 different types of self-care. So we will begin with an affirmation card. I have been really into different sort of affirmation cards. This is from the deck Rethink Affirmation Cards for Mindful Life. I like one of these just, to guide my day. So I wanted to pull a card for our time together today. So I did that before we got started. And what we need as far as our self-care goes today is self-discovery. I approach challenges with determination and resilience. Instead of letting setbacks discourage me, I use them as motivation to continue striving towards my goals. Each difficulty I encounter only makes me more determined to succeed. So I'd love to hear. Feel free to pop in the comments what that card means for you. How can you approach challenges with determination and resiliency instead of letting that discouragement sneak in and kind of get the best of us? So I thought that was a good one. I was happy when I drew that and thought it really connected well because obviously self-care is a part of building determination and resiliency. So we'll be talking today. The first category we're going to delve into is physical health. So there's a lot of different aspects to our physical health. Some that I just recently wrote about yesterday in my Substack post about self-care was the importance of nutrition, physical activity, and medical checkups. Obviously, there's more to physical health than just that, but I really emphasized those yesterday because they're pretty foundational to physical health care. So, nutrition, a lot of people struggle in this area. There's unfortunately a lot of easy, fast, quick sort of just grab sort of choices that don't nourish our body. Obviously, the purpose of nutrition is to fuel our body so we have the energy to do what we need to do throughout the day and to recover, to repair, all the things that our bodies do on a day-to-day basis. And food is really that fuel to make sure we can do that. So As far as nutrition goes, we need a balanced diet that usually consists of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, some healthy fats, lots of protein. So, those are really the things that our body needs. And typically, we need that broken up and split between 3 meals a day. That way, we're keeping our metabolism going and we're getting that energy consistently throughout our day. And then, as far as physical activity goes, we need at least 30 minutes of exercise per day, and that can come again from a lot of different sources. We may spend time with creative pursuits, like dancing, getting exercise that way. That's kind of a fun, sort of creative way. We can get our exercise out in nature by going for walks, swimming, basically anything outside. And then we can also go to places like our local gym and we can do things, like cardiovascular exercise on treadmills, ellipticals. We can do our strength training with weights. And then also, I definitely like to emphasize the importance of restorative exercise practices like yoga, Pilates, things like that to really help our body repair while also maintaining our flexibility. All of those are very important to our well being. And then our medical checkups are also important for our well being. We can catch a lot of things if we're checking base with our primary physician, our dentist, our eye doctor, at least on an annual basis. Dental checkups tend to be twice a year. That way we can prevent things from happening or catch things before they happen. We can be a little bit more proactive and preventative to make sure that we're keeping our body healthy. In the document for this podcast, I will share a couple of resources. So, the first one is a self care assessment. This is not mine, it's done by Therapist Aid, but it's a great resource. It's an assessment with lots of different categories. So, I'll pop this in our discussion after we're done. So some of the things that we want to assess for as far as our physical self-care goes, I already talked about some of them. So we want to make sure that we're eating healthy foods. How do we do it? Taking care of our personal hygiene, exercise, wear clothes that help you feel good about yourself, eat regularly, participate in fun activities. That's my favorite part of being a therapist is I get to tell people to have fun. Get enough sleep, go to those preventative medical appointments we talked about, rest when sick, and then measuring our overall physical health, where we think that is. So after this, after you watch, I will let you fill out that assessment. And the next piece of self-care, the next category of self-care we're going to discuss is our emotional self-care. So, emotional self care is things like expressing our feelings. When we bottle up our emotions, therapists tend to use an anger volcano sort of metaphor that all of those emotions stay under the surface, building pressure until they get too much to handle, and then we tend to explode like a volcano, which obviously is not pleasant. So it's important and part of our self-care that we are able to express our emotions. That may involve things like talking to others about how we feel, spending time with our friends, our family, our loved ones, just communicating and expressing those feelings with our words. Creativity is another great way to express our feelings. We can write about it in a poem, in a story, We can paint our different feelings. So, any of those creative outlets are fantastic for expressing feelings. And then, one of my favorites, I've actually been doing it since I was about 7 years old, is journaling. So, writing about what's going on in your day, what's on your mind, what's bothering you, maybe even what good is happening. Right now, my journaling has shifted from maybe focusing more on the emotional release when bad things happen, and I'm much more proactive. I tend to journal a little bit every day, and I tend to really focus on the things that I'm grateful for. So that's also an option when you're expressing feelings, is to talk about your gratitude. Laughter is another way to have emotional self-care using humor. That's also one of my go-tos. I especially during heavy conversations and topics. I can definitely sit with hard things, but there comes a point where I can just lighten the mood by sharing a little joke or trying to bring some laughter to the conversation to lighten things a little bit. And then going on vacations, that's also one of my favorite things to do. It's definitely part of my self-care plan and journey. Um, I just got back from vacation about a month ago. I was able to go out of state and spend some time in a beautiful area with nature surrounding me. I was kind of right in the middle of nature. So it was perfect. So taking a break can definitely help us with our emotional self care. And that may look like things on the assessment, like taking time off work, school, other obligations, engaging in your hobbies. Get away from distractions, like setting limits on your phone or email. I love the do not disturb feature on my phone. Every evening and night, my phone automatically is set to do not disturb. So that's definitely helpful in that piece. Learn new things unrelated to work or school. Express feelings in healthy ways. Recognize your strengths and achievements. Go on vacations or even a day trip. Do something comforting. For example, rewatching a favorite movie, taking a long bath. Find reasons to laugh. Talk about your problems and then assess your overall psychological or emotional self care. The assessment lumps those things together, psychological and emotional. So that will take us to the spiritual category. An easy way to take care of our spirit is to pray or even meditate. Both of those are very similar processes. A lot of times people describe meditation as a form of contemplative prayer, or if you tend not to have a belief that um, about prayer or that incorporates prayer regularly, then that meditation piece can definitely help with that. Spending time in nature is important for spiritual being. So that may be things like sitting outside. Maybe you have a porch, a patio, a balcony, somewhere where you can sit outside and enjoy nature. It may also be planting or tending to a garden, flowers, whatever that looks like, or maybe, even taking vacation in a place that recognizes or that's brings a little bit more nature to your life than normal. And then spending time in reflection can definitely be part of our spiritual self care. So, reflecting on our choices, our decisions, our day, I highly encourage people to spend some time reflecting on your day, even if it's 5-10 minutes. That's actually a strategy I tend to put into place with couples therapy. It's called a daily stress reducing conversation that you just spend a few minutes chatting about how your day went, especially anything that may have been stressful for you. So then, as far as the assessment goes, the items on our spiritual self care include things like spending time in nature, meditation, prayer, recognizing the things that give you meaning to your life, acting in accordance with morals and values. That's a big part of our spirituality. Setting aside time for thought and reflection. I like this one. This is important and goes back to the advocacy part of me. Participate in a cause that is important to me, that actually is part of our spiritual self care, that we advocate for those in need or at least volunteer for an organization for something that we believe in. And then appreciating art that is impactful to me, like music, film, literature. I like all of the above, theater. And then we rate our overall spiritual self care with this assessment. So, the next category that brings us to is our intellectual self care. On the assessment, I would consider intellectual very similar to our professional self care. But when I'm talking about intellectual self care, I also add a few more things. So, things like taking a class, learning something new, going to museums and maybe learning about history, about art, basically things that stimulate our mind is our intellectual self care. And as far as our professional self care goes, one of the ones that I picked out was having a work life balance because that's just so important. It's vital for our well being. And it's not something the society necessarily rewards. There's always conversations about, how much can you do as quickly as possible? How many hours can you put in? We get paid more if we work overtime at most jobs. So it really tends to reward working more instead of having a healthy work life balance. Nowadays, they even talk about like having a side hustle on top of our 9 to 5. So, figuring out how to maintain that balance while also obviously having financial security and stability is really important to our well being. So, some of the things on the assessment that you can rate yourself on and reflect upon is improving your professional skills, say no to excessive new responsibilities, take on projects that are interesting or rewarding, so saying yes when you want to say yes, learn new things related to my profession, make time to talk and build relationships with colleagues. That's really important, I think. Our colleagues are people we can ask for help when we need to. And, they're people we hang out with at least 8 hours a day. Maybe you go to lunch with them or hang out on a break together. So it's really important to take that time. Take breaks during the workday. Don't work through your breaks. Maintain balance between your professional and personal life. Create a comfortable workspace that allows you to be successful. So, have some of your favorite things around. Make sure you have a comfortable chair, all of those things. And again, back to advocacy, advocate for fair pay, benefits, and other needs. Make sure that your needs are being met, which can help with that work life balance too. And then you'll rate your overall professional self care. That will bring us to our social self care. That is spending time with our friends, family, other relationships, partnerships, all of those types of things. So, the first piece is spending time with our loved ones, and that includes all of our loved ones. I like to say we need at least 5 people in our support system. We can't just have a support person, we have to have a support system. So, really making sure that we're having that balance in our social life, that we are spending time with our friends, our family, and a partner, others, whoever's in our life, and part of those at least 5 people. Ask for help. This is a hard one for a lot of people. It was very hard for me as well, though I'm getting better at it as I get older and stepped out of my comfort zone a little bit. You do have permission to ask for help. And then again, I get to repeat myself and say, do enjoyable activities, have fun. That is part of your social self care. So the assessment includes things like spending time with people you like, calling or writing to friends and family who are far away, maybe even doing like a FaceTime or Zoom meetup with friends who are at a distance. Have stimulating conversations. That can also be part of the intellectual self care that I was talking about, things that challenge you intellectually. So have those stimulating conversations with people, meet new people, spend time alone with your partner, ask others for help when needed, do enjoyable activities with other people, have time for intimacy, keep in touch with old friends, and then you can rate your overall social self care. And then that'll bring us to our environmental self care. So I also wrote about this one yesterday, and that is free. It's not behind a paywall, so feel free to check it out and read it. So our environmental self-care is part of our personal self-care, but it's about taking care of your environment, the area around you. So, part of that is having an awareness of local environmental issues. For me, I talked about where I live having kind of a shortage of bees right now. Bees are a very big part of the conversation where I live. The decline of bee populations is a concern because we have to have pollinators to ensure the growth and reproduction of plants. I live in the Great Plains, the breadbasket of our country, so obviously growing food, farming is very important, and our entire way of life will be impacted if we don't take care of our pollinators, like our bees. Then the other piece I talked about is where I live, we have a concerning level of nitrates in our water. So what happens is from a variety of sources. For example, fertilizers. Those nitrates seep through the soil until they actually break into our groundwater, and it's done that to a level where it's actually impacted our safety and well-being. Even if you have filtered water, most refrigerators now have a filter. The nitrates actually aren't removed by filters. You have to have a separate system called reverse osmosis to remove the nitrates from your water. So that's a concern where I live, is we have to get creative and find some ways to address that, because obviously we need safe drinking water to drink. Um, so taking care of those things, advocating for those things, donating to those causes can definitely be part of our environmental self-care. And it could be things that I've also talked about, like taking time in nature, maybe picking up some trash that fall or that you see at a local park, on the road, whatever it may be. Um, so spend that time in nature, give back, and take care of the earth we were given, that we're so grateful that we have to take care of us. And then we can also take those trips to natural places. I was just at Lake Superior last month, so maybe going to the Great Lakes, or there's lots of other places in the United States to visit: the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone. The list of natural places is never ending. And then obviously other countries across our entire planet have very natural places that we can visit as well. So our last category of self-care is household self care. So, taking care of our personal space is part of taking care of ourselves. A lot of times, and there's more research being done on this, but things like clutter can definitely impact our emotional and psychological functioning. It can kind of be described as an outward representation of how we're feeling on the inside. So, and a lot of mental health concerns actually make taking care of ourself and our like household more difficult. So things like depression, anxiety, um, even to a certain extent, like obsessive compulsive disorder, even though you would think the opposite, it actually can prevent taking care of your household space. And then things, like trauma can definitely impact our ability to take care of the space around us. So we can spend time cleaning our space, do that regularly. There's lots of checklists that can be provided to kind of develop a daily routine of things you're going to take care of every day, every week, every month, and then things that can be taken care of and addressed every 3 months to 6 months as well. And then we can work on organizing our space too. So typically when you start working on organizing your home, the a great place to start is your closet because we tend to just kind of accumulate clothes over the years without necessarily getting rid of those. So we can start by going through our closet. What don't we wear anymore? What doesn't fit anymore? Or just what's not our style anymore. And then we can release those items by selling or donating them to make sure they find a new purpose instead of just hanging out unused in your closet. There's plenty of people. We have billions of people in the world. Somebody may benefit from wearing those. And then you can start looking at other areas of your home, like which rooms need to be organized, what other areas, maybe there's other closets in your home. But we can really create a plan then to make sure that our home, our living space, is really our nourishing sanctuary that really fosters our rest and revitalizes our own well being. So that's a really important part of self care. And we made it through all of the areas of self care. Let me just check. I think we made it through the assessment, which we did. Some of those categories aren't on the assessment, but that's okay. You can still reflect on those and consider them. So, on that note, that brings us to questions to reflect. So, our weekly reflection for this week is reflecting on your self care journey. Which specific areas are you managing well right now? So, like maybe you're really good at taking care of your spirit. You pray regularly, you spend time in nature, you engage in reflection, but maybe you don't take as much time taking care of the environment, giving back to the environment. So that's something that maybe you'd like to give a little bit more attention and nurturing to. So, what are those aspects that you do want to spend more time and build and enhance in your self care? And as you look around your home, which spaces may need a thorough cleaning and thoughtful organization to create a more tranquil environment? Additionally, we can take a moment to ponder the pressing environmental challenges facing your community. What issues are most evident and in need of action where you live? Every community is different there. So I'll give you a minute to reflect and ponder those. Perhaps you want to pull out a notebook and spend a couple minutes just journaling about those questions. Okay. Feel free to come back and revisit that if you need more time to reflect on those questions and what you can focus on with your self care, including recognizing what you're doing really well right now. So, then the other piece that I will pop in our chat is how to create an intention for our self care. So I will be including this document as well. So this one is mine. This is something that I was able to pull together um, for this podcast. And it is about our self care intention. So you'll see in the worksheet, it goes through the different areas of self care that we discussed: physical, emotional, spiritual, intellectual. Again, the self care assessment calls it professional, but that's intellectual as well. Social self care, environmental self care, and our household self care. So, as we spend time reflecting, there's a few lines, up to three under each category. So, write down up to three things that you'd like to focus on in each category. And if you're doing really well in one area, feel free to skip that. You don't have to have an intention in every area, but you're definitely invited to do so. So for example, if you want to work on your physical self-care, maybe you write down your intention is, maybe you're not going to start with 30 minutes a day. Maybe you're going to go on a 20-minute walk every day. And so you write that down as your intention. And then when it's done, you can definitely print that off or print it off and write it and then put it somewhere where you can see it. It's definitely beneficial to accomplish goals and follow through on good intentions if we're able to have that visual reminder. So put it somewhere where you can see it easily, whether it's on your fridge, on your dresser, whatever makes most sense for you in your space. And that brings us to the end of our first Mondays with Michelle. I'm so excited to be here with you. I will leave some space for questions. If you have any questions, just pop them in the comments and I will do my best to answer them in a timely fashion as soon as I can. You can also email me questions in advance for upcoming podcasts, and those can be sent to hopepiecetogether@gmail.com, and I'll see them, and when they fit the topic that we're on, I'll definitely address them in the show during this section. In general, some questions that I get about self-care is mostly people who struggle with self-care and how to implement it. Especially when life is busy. You get in the day-to-day routine of taking care of kids, going to work, getting kids to activities, and it's hard to really carve out that time for yourself. So one of the things I encourage is put your self-care in your calendar, schedule it. I've been doing that one for years, and it's definitely helpful for me. My lunchtime is on my calendar. My exercise time first thing in the morning is on my calendar. It's scheduled into my day. Every week I have what's called Self-Care Sundays. And since I've done that, that's been fantastic and magnificent. So that's something I encourage people to do is, set aside maybe even an entire day that you're going to focus on what you need and refilling your bucket so you can be the best person that you can be for others. We can't pour from an empty bucket, so to speak. So if you have any questions like that, how do I fit this in my day? Or it's really hard to fit it in my day, or anything else that may come to mind, definitely feel free to pop that in the comments or to shoot me an email. And then next week, our topic is going to be on gratitude. So if you have any questions about gratitude, definitely send me an email. Again, the email address is hopepiecetogether@gmail.com, and I will include those in my next episode. All right, well, thank you all for watching. I was so excited to be here with you and get this process going. I'm definitely looking forward to showing up and doing this with you every week. So take care, have a great one, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.